right, just before we jump into today's episode, a quick word from our sponsor, Katana. Now, I know a lot of you are selling on Shopify, Amazon, wholesale, retail, and sometimes all at once. And, once you're on more than a couple of channels, keeping inventory accurate gets genuinely hard, and that's where Katana fits in. Stock syncs automatically across every channel and every location, all in real time. So there's no spreadsheets, there's no manual reconciliation, none of the setup overhead of a traditional ERP. Now, you can try it for free right now at katanamrp.com. That's katanamrp.com. All right, let's jump into today's episode.
You're listening to E-commerce Fastlane, the podcast show to help you build, manage, grow, and scale a successful and thriving company, powered by Shopify. Listen to real conversations with partners and subject matter experts as they share proven practical strategies, platforms, and the best Shopify apps to help you accelerate your business. The time is now for you to improve efficiencies, grow revenue, profit, and lifetime customer loyalty. Please welcome your host, startup founder and strategic advisor, Steve Hutt.
Well, hey there. Welcome back to E-commerce Fastlane. I'm your host, Steve Hutt. Now, today's conversation, and it's an important one, is really all about finding the revenue in your Shopify store that everybody, every brand, every marketer knows that they're definitely leaving something on the table. There's always some sort of optimization that definitely can happen. A lot of times you can understand what it might be, but sometimes you don't know directly how to fix it, or how do you triage what things need to be improved upon or tested or experimented on. I think that's the interesting part about it. And we know that this money it's sitting somewhere in the store. And so that's the thing. And so it could be things like pricing, or it could be maybe in the bundles that their customers, are already buying together. Like it could be, I'm just thinking out loud here, but even like retention flows, that maybe are firing at the wrong time, these sort of things. And I think knowing that it's there, I think that's the easy part. Sometimes you can identify some of these things because you're so close to the product and what you're selling. But I think actually finding it and then capturing it, I think is where most brands get kind of stuck. They don't really know, what should I go after and how do I come up with a decision to experiment on it, make some changes, and then monitor those changes. And I think that's where my guest, Apoorva Modi, is going to help us with this. He's the founder of a company called Revenue Agent, and they're at revenueagent.app. Nice thing about Apoorva, he's actually spent 6 years over at Google. He'll tell me more about his story in a moment, but I creeped on his LinkedIn profile this morning. But he's working with Google on the ads platform for quite a while. He has his own D2C brand. He's done a lot of stuff, so he actually kind of gets it. He was working with Wella, he's working with Kauri. He really is an operator, plus now a platform guy that really understands what it takes to kind of improve the performance of a Shopify store. That's why he's built this solution. He's in the Shopify App Store right now, Revenue Agent. Really, he's new, but he himself and his background is not new, so he actually kind of really gets it. So, Apoorva, welcome to the show, and I'm glad you're here.
Thank you so much, Steve. That was a great introduction.
All right. I feel great. So tell me something. To kick us off here, let's talk about Revenue Agent as the product. Like what exactly does it do? I kind of alluded to a little bit, but I love hearing it in the founder's voice. Like, what specifically are some high-level problems that you're solving today for Shopify brands?
Okay. So, imagine you're a Shopify brand, right? And let's say you do more than $1 million in revenue. In your heart, as I did when I was, an operator, that, hey, there is money being left on the table from my existing customers. So I'm not here talking about hey, I need to do more advertising or, new customers, which is important, but that's not what I'm talking about. But the fact is you are stretched, right? Every day of the week, you're fighting fires. There's some issue with your employees. There's some issue with your customers. There's some issue with product, and you're fighting fires. And so you're just never getting to do those experiments to find that revenue. And often know what it is. You're like, hey, my bundles are not quite right. Or my pricing for these products hasn't been updated. Or my free shipping is too low. I can go on. Right. And so what Revenue Agent does is it uses 21 proprietary statistical models to stack rank revenue opportunities for you across those 8 levers, that I just mentioned: pricing, promo, retention, etc. And then it goes one step further. So, right, yeah, so it's given you these dollar-based opportunities. But then it actually bridges the gap to execution, and it will run the experiments autonomously when you give it permission to capture that revenue. So it doesn't leave the grunt work to you. So that's what Revenue Agent is.
It's amazing. I know I went through and noticed all of these, at least how you put them together, about these 8 revenue levers, I'm going to call them, that your agent can actually scan for. I'm going to call them out just so that we have them in the transcript. But pricing is an important lever that people maybe aren't testing as much as they should. The free shipping thresholds, I believe, is important. Bundles, we talked about. Promotions, how much revenue we're giving away, and margin loss or not having to give it away. Maybe I've heard stories about even revenue being lost because celebrity endorsers or UGC kind of content where the customer was already going to buy, and why are we giving them a coupon when they already were going to buy and they're in that funnel? I know you probably get into all that. Retention is important. The inventory, I think, is a really interesting one I'm going to talk about, because I think in a few minutes, I think inventory for me was a very odd one for a revenue leak, which is an interesting one. Discounts, obviously, and then checkout and the whole checkout flow and kind of how that works. So we're going to get into a lot of those individual pieces for sure, I think, in this show. But can you take me back, just before we jump into it, can you take me back a little bit about, what were you watching maybe at Google or even back at Wella when you were there? Like what made you say that someone has to fix these revenue challenges? Because there clearly is a problem, and as a founder wears lots of hats. How do they, what did you think about saying, well, there's all of these problems, I need to fix these problems? It's interesting to me how people come up with these concepts.
Yeah. So a few years ago, I was the e-commerce lead for Wella UK, Wella in the United Kingdom, which is a P&G brand. And, it was exactly what I said, right? So I was just, stretched thin. Yeah. And by the way, Wella is a professional hair care brand for those who...
Yes, those who know who Wella is. Yeah. They're big. They're in the salon. They're a salon product, right?
You're exactly right, Steve.
Yeah.
Your beauty products. Yeah. And I knew that, our revenue wasn't optimized, right? Mm-hmm. I knew that, for example, there were several bundles I wanted to build because I knew that a lot of products were being co-purchased. And I knew that if I gave a small discount on those co-purchases, I would improve my top line and actually my bottom line too, even though I would take a small hit on, margin for the exact bundles. And it was so funny. There were 20 such experiments that I wanted to run. And I ended up running one that year. And it was because, the CFO would ask for a report, or, the warehouse caught fire. And I was then dealing with okay, what do we do? What do we deprioritize on the website, etc.
Right.
So this was at P&G. And then I went to Coty and then to Google, where I saw from the ads side, from the ads data, hundreds of e-commerce brands struggling with the same thing. So one was, these e-commerce operators, they're smart, right? They know their instincts are often good and honed. Mm-hmm. They know what they have to do. They just don't get to it because they are capacity constrained and they are the bottleneck.
Yeah.
So, and I was like, what can we do to build this for them? What can we do to make this easy for them without them having to spend additional time to capture this incremental revenue, which is already in their data? Mm-hmm. So that's what helped us build a revenue agent.
Yeah, this is amazing. I agree with you on the human bottleneck, because I think I just mentioned it. People are founders, marketers, they're wearing a lot of hats. And a lot of times, with the firefighting and then other ongoing projects, sometimes it's really hard to make the intelligent decision about what you should actually be working on. And I think that's where your solution and the scan that can happen to find these potential revenue leaks and then how to improve and start experimenting with some recommendations that come out of these scans. So it's really, really interesting. This is really high tech, really interesting. And I'm glad that you've identified them and categorized them accordingly. So it seems like you're tackling a lot of things all at once and then make the decisions about what you want to improve upon. And let's test, monitor, and then reiterate accordingly, right? So I think it's pretty cool. Now, I have a question about, in contrast to your solution and to maybe what Shopify has been working on over the last few years. I think it seems out of the box. They've been building a lot of interesting tools and stuff. Not necessarily just Sidekick and other things, but it's interesting kind of what's out there and available to help merchants. They're trying to make they're not a Swiss Army knife. Clearly, there's lots of great apps out there that Shopify is never going to build and or buy, but they allow the partner ecosystem to flourish because they have their mandates and their product roadmap of what they're working on. And, partners like you come in and are solving very unique problems. But can you contrast a little bit about, what specific you believe that your solution is solving that maybe Shopify doesn't necessarily solve on their own with their own platform?
Yeah, it's a great question, Steve, and one we really, dove deep into. So, as you mentioned, they have Sidekick, and then they also have a bunch of other offerings, right? Their analytics, pretty decent, for example.
Yeah.
And so, what we did, Steve, is we actually observed our customers. We asked them, hey, can you open like your Shopify dashboard and just walk us through how you use their dashboard, what you're using Revenue Agent for? And, it was so instructive because their first question was, hey, can I just not do this with Sidekick, as an example. And so what came out was, I'll start like with the tactical observations and then take it a level up. So what we saw was, they would use Sidekick for two major things, which is the Shopify offering, for those who don't know. First, they were using it to augment their reporting. So for example, when you go to Shopify, you go to analytics, and then you can like look at your data, right? And then if you want to pull custom views of that data, it was a little bit painful earlier. Now, thanks to the Sidekick AI, you can like give it those custom variables and it'll pull the report for you. Really easy, really lovely. The second thing we saw a lot of people use it for was to quickly make changes to their website. So earlier, they would want to hire a designer because, they launched a new product or a new promo. And that takes time. Often these designers are on, contract basis. Now you can just do that super quick with Sidekick. So theme building, theme changes, etc. So that's what we saw them use it for. What we did not see them use it for was detailed revenue optimization insights. And I'll take this up a couple of levels, right? You see Shopify, fantastic company, with fantastic engineers, but they have to serve those roughly 5 to 6 million merchants. Their product needs to work for everyone. And I saw this at Google when we would build stuff, because our products needed to work for the billions of people who used it. And so that means that the product needs to work for everyone's, most important use cases. That also means that when there is a particular area that you need to go deep into, they might not solve it as deeply as a focused solution. So ours, for example, is revenue optimization, right? At least to begin with, and let's see where we go from here. So I think we get to go a lot deeper. Also, we build statistical models, right? Because AI models, they are language models, which means that they will hallucinate and they will get things wrong. So, you want like good statistics, good econometrics, modeling to run on your data before the LLM comes and makes sense of whatever the outputs are.
I see. This is amazing. So can we talk a little bit about, for me, when I look at some stores, a lot of them are running a lot of different kind of, I'd say, point solutions. Sometimes I would do like app audits, and there's a little bit of duct tape going on and as we know, you start adding more apps. Sometimes it can, tax the overall speed, and that, and then your light speed scores can go, there's a lot of kind of organic things that go along with adding more and more and more to your store. What have you seen, like when you get to look at some merchants, kind of admins and stuff like that, because they'll have, they might have a separate analytics tool. They might use some in Shopify, but they may have an external one. They might be connecting to a testing tool. There's so many different apps and marketing platforms that connect. What are you seeing on your end? And then do you find it interesting that adding your solution to the mix will allow people to kind of like pause or discontinue the use of other solutions just because you don't need to have all of these things all running concurrently? You can have yours in place to do the job that it's meant to do.
Steve, this is such a good question. And we were literally talking about this before the show, So this is what I've seen entrepreneurs, Shopify merchants do, right? They know that, hey, I need to improve my margins. Why? Well, I'm facing more competition than ever. Yeah. My cost of acquisition is going up on Google and Meta and TikTok, and tariffs are eating my margins. And, it's just a tough environment. Okay, so I need to improve my yield, right? So what do I do? Well, let me do better analysis. Okay, let me install a dashboard, which tells me where I'm not doing as well or where are opportunities. Okay, now I need to calculate my customer's lifetime value. Okay, let me install Lifetimely, Okay, now I need to send emails and SMSs. I install one of those solutions. Yep. But what's happening, and those solutions are all good, right? They've been refined over time. Yep. But what's happening is me or my team end up becoming the operating layer. And, we are already swamped. So wait, so now we need to build more email flows, do more calculations, look at more dashboards. And so that's what we were, also like, that was one of the big insights. And thank you for asking this question. Mm-hmm. That helped us build this. We were like, look, today, 3 years ago, I asked the question, which is the best tool to do X, right? To do emails or whatever.
Fair enough.
Today, we live in the age of agentic AI. So today, the better question to ask is, which is the best tool which will completely handle a workflow for me end to end? Because that is how I will compete in this new era.
No, and that's what you do, and I think that's the uniqueness. I do appreciate that. The team capacity layer that you're talking about, like that, is having to execute on all of these things. I mean, I'll even add one little comment to it. Is multiple times when I've done app audits when I was inside Shopify, a lot of times I would ask the director of e-commerce or the marketing director and just saying, can you walk me through specifically why you've made the choices that you have with these certain apps in here? A lot of times, everybody's in their own silos, doing their own thing. And a lot of times they didn't even realize that they had this $500 a month app that they weren't even using anymore because that team member was gone 6 months ago and they needed it for their inventory forecasting or whatever they were using it for. And it was perfect for the time. It was solving an individual challenge, but it's really, that in itself was an efficiency play of just going through all the apps from top to bottom and then going, and I think that's kind of where you're fitting into the mix. We're like, hey, wait a second here. Instead of like all of the work and the research that goes into revenue maximization or, profitability kind of forecasting and making these changes and testing and experimenting, this all can happen based on doing a scan through your system. And then, a lot of the answers are already there for you. So even the cognitive load is less because it's more of an agentic system and it's solving a larger problem all as one solution.
Exactly right. Steve, my dream is that, and my vision is that this thing becomes your whole store operating system. And not only do we, currently it executes those actions that I talked about, those, over those 8 levers that you mentioned. But eventually, honestly, like it should be so seamless that you should be able to just chat with it through your phone. And, it can both give you insight and just take care of it for you.
Wow. What a great time to be alive right now, to be an operator, honestly. Like it's just really wild. So tell me what happens when someone goes to the App Store and they install Revenue Agent. And 'cause I think it's free to install right now, and we'll kind of talk about it at the end here. Some opportunities that we can share with people. But walk us through what happens when a merchant decides to install it. What's happening in the background, and what is typically revealed to a merchant, and then what typically are their next steps once this has been revealed?
Okay, so it's quite simple, as you said. So you run a Shopify store, and you install the app. It's free to install, and then it will take about 5 minutes to scan 5 years of your data. If your store is newer than 5 years, it'll just scan whatever data, how many ever months or years you've been alive. Right. And then after it does that scan, it will run those background statistical models. As I mentioned, we worked with the best data scientists in the e-commerce space and in the econometric space to build these 21 proprietary models. Okay. That will stack rank opportunities where you can have incremental revenue with your existing customers in your existing data, And so it'll work across those 8 levers that you mentioned up before, pricing, retention, etc. And then it will order them in descending order from, the highest revenue opportunity first and the easiest one first, all the way to, more tough and more complex opportunities. After that, you can click on each opportunity and it will show you the methodology. So it will show you the actual numbers, the actual products that are impacted. It will then also show you the trade-offs. Because, hey, if you're discounting a product, sure, you will probably make more money, but you're taking a hit on margin, right? So it will show you the trade-offs, just so you as an owner or a manager can transparently make a decision. It will then set up the experiment for you. So it will show you, hey, this is the exact experiment that we should run, right? So cell A is keeping things as they are. Cell B is, 50% or 3% or whatever of your customers see this new pricing or this new bundle. Right. And then if you click on approve with guardrails, it will run the experiment for you. Also, if you see something that you don't like or you run something and you're like, oops, I don't want to do that, you can just click undo and it'll undo that experiment.
And then so this is kind of running in the background. So the scan happens, there's some recommendations, they're sorted, then you go one by one, and let's say one of them could be like a bundling opportunity and saying, hey, we believe that there's, here's the incremental value or the annual revenue impact, let's say, based on doing this appropriate bundling, because it'll increase profit, it'll increase average order value, it'll increase lifetime value, there's all these things that can happen. So you statistically have figured all of this out. It kind of reminds me of this RFM, this recency frequency monetization kind of thing, understanding the customer's data, understanding what the next sale is, or buy product A, we believe that here's the timeline to buying product B. And it's so interesting that you have all of this kind of organized into one solution, and then being able to execute on it and saying, hey, what's the impact that could happen based on bundling? And you're like, oh, okay, well then should we make these bundles? And then boom, your solution goes out and makes those bundles. And then they just magically appear now, I guess, right on the PDP page for that particular product.
Exactly right.
Wow, that's once again, great time to be alive, that these sort of tests and things that can happen. So someone does that, they install it, they get these tests. So how do you price the product though? Because that's the next people are going to ask, say, okay, this clearly it can and should be a significant revenue upside. How do you price the product proportionate to the upside that the merchant gets?
Steve, just to clarify, you're talking about how do I price the app?
Yeah, the actual solution itself. So the merchant, when they, it's free to install, and they have a lot of these recommendations that are built into it with these, these 8 different kind of revenue levers, I guess we talk about. So when it shows all of that, and then we want to start going in and making those experiments, how is the app priced to the merchant? Is it based on revenue increases, or is it a flat rate? I'm just curious.
So for now, Steve, it's a flat rate. So as I said, the scan is free, and that scan can be refreshed monthly for free. So, if you're a small store, please take advantage of that scan. If we can add value in this world, we're doing something right? And then if you want the autonomous experimentation, the advanced insights to be refreshed daily, or weekly, then you can get the product for $99 a month.
Okay. So it's very affordable then. So basically, you can do the free scan, and then with this, I guess the next tier up would be like a weekly kind of a refreshed opportunity scan to see where you're at, and then I guess you can keep going even further for more of an enterprise solution for those that are looking for even more. I guess more opportunities and maybe more guardrails for enterprise businesses.
Exactly. So we have a couple of enterprise customers. One of the US's largest supplements retailer is an enterprise customer for us, Steve. Lovely. And they need custom work. Often, also sometimes those enterprise customers are not on Shopify. So, we'll bring the statistical models to whatever they are on, Salesforce, Commerce Cloud, or whatever, And Steve, just one more note on pricing. Typically we see stores, in our experience, find between 5 and 15% of whatever their annual revenue is as incremental revenue opportunity. So let's say you're a $10 million revenue store, right? You're going to see somewhere between $500,000 and $1.5 million in incremental revenue opportunity. Wow. So that's why we priced it at, it's $99. And if you get let's say $500,000 in incremental revenue out of it, I'm going at the lower end, that 5%, it's a no-brainer, right? And that's what we want this to be.
Yeah. No, it's an absolute no brainer. Like, that's, I kind of knew the pricing ahead of time, kind of looking at the revenueagent.app website. I just wanted to get clarity on it. I'm kind of like, well, let's open the doors here with the free scan and a revenue scan and through, based on these 8 areas. And then for me, my thought is this: merchants and founders, they don't know what they don't know. They know there's a problem. They know that, as I mentioned at the top of the show, there is an opportunity there. They know it exists. They just don't know which lever to pull, when and why. And then what does that experiment look like? And once again, people do point solutions, either dashboards or other CRO tools and different things like that. You've kind of put it more holistically together overall under these kind of 8 revenue levers, and through the scan. I think it's pretty amazing.
Thank you, Steve. I heard a great quote because, we are living in a world that's evolving and so dynamic thanks to, ChatGPT and all this AI stuff. And, someone said a beautiful quote, and I saw this on LinkedIn, and someone said, I don't want AI to do the strategic work and the creative work so I have more time to do the dishes. I want AI to do the dishes so I have more time to do the creative and strategic work. And that's, really lit a light bulb for me, which was like, look, whatever we build, it needs to make life better so that the owner or the e-com manager, whoever, can spend more time on the stuff that matters, on governance and what kind of product should I build and which kind of customer should I go to, not on all this grunt work of setting up experiments and filling in PDPs.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. I've been talking about this a lot about the human and AI, and you're right. All the efficiency gains that come out of AI powered solutions that agentically can do a lot of these different things with the appropriate model and the harness that goes along with it that builds this whole thing with guardrails. I think it's great to have that, but also then that should free up time for the human to do only human things if it's creative tasks, and just making overall brand play and being the human behind the product. Because people don't. That's why I don't think agentic commerce really hasn't. It's so early right now, and there's still a lot of wars going on with UCP, this Universal Commerce Protocol, and Meta's trying to work on theirs, and Stripe's trying to do their thing now, and Google's got their thing. I know Google Shopify's been doing their thing, but it's so interesting where people are still a little bit nervous about just It's fine to be discoverable in AI and through Perplexity and Gemini and whatnot, and I think that's good for the research phase. But I think that's the whole reason why even ChatGPT made a decision, though. We're no longer going to allow people to buy from within app because we didn't realize all of the the other parts of commerce from fraud. And so you said, okay, so now we're going to allow for hyperlinks, research, and then hyperlink out to the brand store to make the purchase. But buying from within app, I know we kind of diverge a bit here, but it's such an interesting overall concept that a brand needs to think about. So that's my thought is that the agentic side or agentic commerce, we're in the early days. I think discoverability in AI models, I think that's important. I think that's really important. But I think as far as as far as like people actually buying now from within app, on your solution, I think what makes the power of the whole thing is that there is this opportunity, as I said, that the revenue can increase based on experimentation. And I think that is the lift, and the pricing is just like, it's unreal.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah, and the whole agentic e-commerce, that is so interesting. I was mentioning to you again before I was at the Lead Summit in New York last week. And this was on everyone's mind, right? And the first thing they just said is, hey, get your structured data right. Because that's going to make you more shoppable. But then the second part is, you're right. ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini, they need to figure out, and they are figuring out, because there's so much on the line, how to make the experience seamless. My co-founder he's going to Goa, which is a lovely beach town in India. Mm-hmm. And he was saying he was trying to buy waterproof shoes this morning.
Right.
And he tried using Claude and ChatGPT, and he said it was terrible. He went back to Amazon, and looking at vendors' websites directly. And so you're right. That space is evolving, and it's going to be fascinating to see how we can enable and help and also thrive in that space.
Yeah, this is amazing. So, what do you believe some of the next steps are for those that are listening today? There's clearly people are listening to this podcast for a reason. Part of it is just to understand the lay of the land and what's new and exciting. And clearly, you're in the early days, but you have a lot of a past that's allowed you to be there. Plus, you're a current operator, you're a past operator, and so knowing all of that, what do you believe some of the next steps are for those that are listening? And is there a sweet spot of merchant that you believe your solution can be most impactful?
Yeah, great question, Steve. I would say for those that are listening, it's something I mentioned a little bit earlier, but for whatever tool you're using, right, for whichever aspect of your life, of your work life you want help with, ask which workflow it can take over versus what is a dashboard or what can it do well. That's the first thing. Second, I would say the ideal customer profile for those who we can help is anyone doing over $1 million in sales, even $500,000 depending on the kind of product, just because we need enough transaction volume to give you good statistical recommendations with high confidence. I think the next step is just install the app. Steve, can you remind me of the full question, please?
Yeah, no, I'm just curious on kind of like what the next steps might be, because I think that's the thing. Someone will, be listening to the show and going, hey, you know what? Like, I really want to try this out. I think I want to install the app. I just, I know we kind of walked through about how quickly it can be installed and kind of what the next steps are, but I just want to make sure that everyone understands that, hey, it's free and here's what's going to show you. And, the next steps are after that, if you like what this does, and how everything is ranked by dollar impact and making these changes. I think it's really interesting that this opportunity is even available. I just want to kind of give people the next steps for them.
Yeah. And I'll save the new customer offer for a second, right, for your next question. Okay. So Steve, the next steps are just go and install the app. It's, as I said, and as Steve said, it's totally free. If you're a small store, just enjoy, just look at the opportunities it surfaces. And even if you don't go for the paid version, go and run that retention flow that it's going to suggest for your top customers. It's going to identify those customers. You can tag them for free. And then if you're a larger store, doing more than, let's say, $100,000 a month or about $1 million a year, then, you can subscribe to the paid version for $99, which will unlock the autonomous experimentation and actions in the app. Right. So, hopefully the app helps you have, additional revenue from your existing data.
Yeah, no, this is amazing. Okay, well, I'll make sure I had everything in the show notes. So it's revenueagent.app is the URL. You can go to the Shopify App Store and you can do a quick search in there under Revenue Agent, and it'll pop up. And like I said, it's a new solution, but it's already got a lot of 5-star ratings already. So people are clearly seeing the upside, and so I think this is great. I just, once again, thank you for sharing. I feel like I feel blessed I have the opportunity to interview people like yourself that are building very interesting solutions that I know are impactful. It's not just efficiency gains. This is actually revenue gains, all through experimentation, finding and scanning. I love these 8 different revenue levers that you figured out here. I think it's just, once again, it's giving people the intentional space to saying, no, we've ran the scan, have a look. Now, what do you want to do next? And then going and doing it. And I think that's the thing. It kind of sets people up for success. And I commend you on giving people that intentional space with the app and then going out and making those experiments and then seeing the revenue lift that happens because of it. So I think that's really cool.
Steve, thank you. And you're very kind to give startups like us a platform to take our, tell people about what we're doing. And, of course, I love e-commerce Fastlane. We love the support you've given us. So for all the listeners of this show, we'd love to give you a month of the Pro tier free on us.
Lovely.
So please just reach out. Steve will share the link. And also for the first 30 listeners, our team will personally walk you through your scan and identify the top 3 opportunities that you can have incremental revenue. So would love to support the listeners of this show as well.
Oh, lovely. Okay, so that's great. I'll put that all in the show notes then. So if you're listening to this now, jump in right away and get this, because only 30 people are going to be able to have the audit, and one of your team members, success team members, can have a look and give personal recommendations about what the potential next steps are. End of the day, the upside is for everyone. Everybody wins here. The customer wins because they're getting, the product they want and the bundles they want, the pricing that they want. And so I think that's great. The merchant wins because the revenue and the LTV and the basket size all goes up. And then a small amount of money to your company just to continue this great product and keep rolling. So this is lovely. Thanks again for recording. And I wish you continued success. And thanks a lot. This is great.
Thank you, Steve. It was such a pleasure to talk to you.
All right. Have yourself a great afternoon. Well, that's it for today's episode. I'd like to thank you personally for being a loyal listener of E-commerce Fastlane. It's my hope that this podcast is offering you a ton of value through growth strategies, tactics, and exclusive insider tips on the best Shopify apps and marketing platforms, all with my personal goal to help you build, manage, grow, and scale a successful and thriving company powered by Shopify. Thanks for investing some time today and listening to the show. I'm so proud and excited that you have a growth mindset and are a constant learner. I truly appreciate you and your entrepreneurial journey. Enjoy the rest of the week and keep thriving with Shopify.